is a trained molecular biologist who worked as a scientist and then opted to leave science to go into policy with what he knows about science and to fight largely the climate change issue and others. He is the CEO of Sigma Xi, the Scientific Research Honor Society, internationally publisher of American Scientist magazine. And please help me welcome Dr. Jamie Vernon.
Hello everyone, hello North Carolina. It's such a treat to be here in my home state to celebrate science with you. After going to Washington, D.C. and working in policy, being back in my home state to talk about science again with people, wonderful supporters like you, is such an exciting thing. I've been invited to actually talk about STEM education. Does everyone know what STEM is? It's science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And these are the subjects we're celebrating today. Do we have any teachers in the audience? All right. Do we have any STEM teachers in the audience? All right. Ladies and gentlemen, these people are heroes, and they deserve every bit of respect we can give them. Our teachers are critical. They're crucial to our ability to solve the biggest challenges of our time. Chronic diseases such as HIV and cancer, food shortages, access to clean water, and climate change, of course. But it won't be done by arming them with guns. It'll be done with arming them with knowledge. Our teachers will educate and inspire the scientists and engineers who will solve these problems. Just a little background. As a young boy, I asked a lot of questions. You might say I asked too many questions. A lot of you parents out there with 5 or 6-year-olds, and I have my own, probably know exactly what I'm talking about. And when it came to science, I had a hard time getting satisfactory answers. Where did dinosaurs come from? How big is the sun? What makes rain? You see, I grew up in a small town, Sharpsburg, North Carolina. At the time, population probably 800 people. I didn't know any scientists. In fact, I didn't know anyone who had gone to college as far as I knew. So the answers that I received just didn't seem quite right. Then I met Miss Salibi. Miss Salibi introduced me to science. And when I say science, I don't mean that she just gave me the facts. The sun has a radius of 432,169 miles. No, she taught me the scientific method. She taught me that for every observation I made, for every question I had, I should develop a hypothesis and try to explain it on my own, given the knowledge that I had. Then she taught me how to test that hypothesis. My mind was blown, and at an early stage I understood that science was not just a series of facts. Science was a way of thinking. And as I continued through school, I encountered more STEM teachers that cultivated this way of understanding the world. And I'll probably never have this opportunity again, so I'm going to mention some of them. Mrs. Turner, Mrs. Page, Mr. Gall, Mrs. Cox, Mr. Creasy, so many more paved the way for me to a career in science. Each of these contributed their own way of developing a young scientist and ultimately led for me to pursue a PhD in molecular biology. Today, as Brian said, thankfully, I am the CEO of Sigma Xi, the largest multidisciplinary honor society for scientists and engineers in the world. But my story is not unique. Teachers have contributed to the solutions of every major crisis we faced in the modern age. When the Allies were confronted with possible defeat by the Axis Alliance in World War II, scientists were called upon to save us from tyranny. Many years prior, Augustus Cluck, who taught physics and chemistry at New York's Ethical Culture School in New York, inspired a special young science student to pursue a career in science. That student was none other than Robert Oppenheimer, the father of the atomic bomb which ended the war. And fortunately, thanks to 2 very important Sigma Xi members, Linus Pauling and Albert Einstein, we haven't used a magnitude nuclear weapon of that nature since. In 1957, when the Soviet Union launched the first artificial satellite into orbit, America feared that we were losing our global technological dominance. This triggered President John F. Kennedy to proclaim that the United States would put men on the moon. 3 minutes before the Apollo lunar lander Eagle carrying Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin reached the surface of the moon, computer alarms went off. The landing would have been aborted had it not been for a former high school teacher and computer programmer named Margaret Hamilton, who had anticipated the problem, probably because of her teaching preparation, and prepared a software program that would solve that problem. Putting men on the moon restored America's confidence in science and began a period of technological dominance that's extended till today. And now we are facing numerous threats, the likes of which humankind has never seen, from antibiotic-resistant pathogens to climate change. Our dependence on fossil fuel has created an environmental crisis, and once again, science will be called upon to find a solution. North Carolina, I say to you that the individuals who will develop the clean energy source that will help us break our addiction to fossil fuels could be in one of our classrooms, could be here today, could be one of these incredible young ladies that just stepped off the stage. That's why we have an obligation to invest in STEM education. We're going to need the brain power of the next generation to fix the mistakes of the past. And we must ensure that students from all backgrounds are given a chance to contribute. Diversity in science leads to diversity of solutions. And when these solutions emerge, we need to tell our elected leaders to do what their predecessors did. Believe in science, use science, and continue to invest in science. As we stand here in the shadow of the legislature, we have to call on our leaders to use science. The beauty of investing in science is that it guarantees economic success. For decades, the United States has enjoyed tremendous wealth thanks to our previous technological achievements. We want to make the same situation for the next generation of Americans. So do not let the message that you've heard here today fade away. Contact your representatives and tell them to stand up for science. And if they do not listen, come November, vote for science. Thank you.
Dr. Jamie Vernon, perfect words to close with. We are going to hear from Marty and Kevin Long. Why don't you come back up on the stage? And I want to thank everybody. And like he said, that it's great that you came out and stand up for science right here today, but it has to go beyond today and vote for science and make our leaders vote for science. Hold them responsible for evidence-based policy. And again, the scientific community needs to be inclusive and diverse.